Well, thank you for that lovely intro, Becky. So excited to be here this morning, and particularly being the first e-commerce marketing show. So that's very exciting. So before we start, how are you feeling this morning? Hopefully very excited for the day ahead, maybe the next 2 days ahead. Perhaps you're still waking up and waiting for the coffee to kick in. See a few faces, definitely. Or if you're like me, an introvert, maybe a little bit socially anxious with so many people about. But what if I told you that there was a natural remedy, a daily natural remedy that would make you feel great, boost your happy hormones, would help burn fat, increase your metabolism, and build mental resilience? Or maybe you think I'm kind of pulling your leg, it sounds too good to be true, or maybe that I'm trying to sell something. Well, I can say that, from personal experience, this remedy is real, and that I found and had amazing results through this natural remedy. But more on that later. So why am I talking health and well-being? Well, I'm sure I'm not alone when it comes to the impact of COVID. So particularly since COVID, I've been paying much more attention to my health and well-being, trying to be a bit more intentional about the choices I make. As part of that kind of development, I came across something called biohacking. Now, one definition of biohacking is making small incremental diet or lifestyle changes to make small improvements in your health and well-being. And when preparing this talk today, I was struck at the uncanny resemblance between the definition of biohacking and the definition of SEO. Because SEO, you could say, you just switch it out a bit, is making small incremental changes, website changes, that can result in big improvements to your online visibility. And that's what you're here today, and that's why I'm here today. That's to really talk about my experience at Dunelm.com, particularly around the power of e-commerce filters. So for the avoidance of doubt, what is an e-commerce filter? I'm pretty sure 99.9% of you have experienced an e-commerce filter and interacted with one while shopping online. So here's some examples of some popular brands here with their filtering system. And ultimately, the filtering system is there and designed to help narrow the results that you're viewing on a product lister page to help you find the product you're looking for. And an example of this, we're just going to bring up an example of Wayfair. So this is one of Wayfair's product lister pages. There's 260 results on this page. And if you were to interact with one of the attributes in the filtering system of color, and you selected black, that would filter the results down to about 86. And common attributes are things like sizes and colors and materials, and styles and ranges, etc., etc. So we're all very familiar with those, part and parcel of the online experience. And from an organic point of view, these pages can rank incredibly well. As you can see in this example, again with Wayfair, the filter page that I just showed actually ranks number 1 for a long tail term, which is very specific and satisfies the query really well. I'm ranking in position 1. So it makes us wonder about the opportunity around filters. Now, this is a very famous graph in the world of SEO and agencies. And this really represents the fact that you've got your head terms that are searched for and have much more volume, but generally convert lower than, say, medium to long tail terms, which don't have as much individual volume, but actually can convert really, really well. And there's a massive opportunity in that kind of medium to long tail keyword. So for me and for Dunelm, this was a huge opportunity ahead. In order to start the story around the development of Dunelm, I kind of need to go back in time to a quite difficult year for a lot, and that is 2020. So we experienced national lockdowns that affected lots of stores, regional lockdowns, and we also saw a shift in behaviour, a shift from a lot of offline, customers going into stores and being kind of forced to go online because stores were unopen. So huge shift in demand to online. And around that time, and around the end of 2020 when I joined Dunelm, That year, there's been a lot of development on Dunelm.com, including the click and collect service, which they launched just in time for the national lockdown. And Dunelm was flying at that point. They were really doing well. So this is a graph from a popular tool, Ahrefs, showing Dunelm's online visibility just going from strength to strength. This was definitely an impact of that demand shift, definitely, but also from an organic standpoint, really ranking well for so many different terms, and we're in an amazing position. However, I was acutely aware in that moment in time when I joined Dunelm that the filtering system on the Dunelm website was completely blocked from being crawled. So essentially, Google had no way of accessing any of that filtering system at all. Not only that, we had no way of actually optimizing those filter pages. So Becky mentioned it earlier, top tip, install this free Chrome extension, Robots Exclusion Checker. I built this a few years ago primarily for working on complex faceted navigation and filtering systems. And it works on a red, amber, green basis. Red being there's a problem with Google accessing that page. Amber, probably something you need to take a look at. There's a warning around that. And green, all is okay. Google search engines can access the content. So back to Dunelm. Despite the filtering system being blocked, at that time, Dunelm were ranking incredibly well for quite product-specific terms. So here's an example, black coffee table. So Dunelm were ranking in position 1 with a generic coffee tables lister page, right? So a very specific black coffee table, but it was actually our generic lister page that was ranking in position 1. Another example here was grey TV unit. Again, position 1 with our TV stands, a generic lister page. And I was acutely aware at that time that we, as it were overachieving. We're overachieving in the rankings based on what I could see about the Dunelm website and based on the results in the search engines at that time. So it seemed like our generic lister pages, and in some cases our category pages, were outranking competitor pages that had a better customer experience. There was no doubt about that. So I'd say here that this was a bit of a ticking time bomb as far as I was concerned at the time. We were ranking where I felt maybe we shouldn't have been ranking. Competitors were doing a better job. And I felt like it was only a matter of time until the Google algorithm caught up with us, ultimately. So a bit of a top tip here, and I think important for anyone who works in SEO, is to become obsessed with the results, to check them on a regular basis, to understand what Google is rewarding in the results. And it's really important to simulate the customer journey, perform a search, look at all the results on page 1, click through to each one of those listings and understand all the best bits, what is good, what is bad about that landing page experience, and how can you improve yours based on what else you're seeing on that first page. So in that moment in time, I knew that the aim would be, the core objective for me at that time and the team would be to build an SEO optimized filter system. So last year, Leda Solis, who I'm sure many of you know, very well known in the SEO sphere, conducted a poll, and the results of the poll showed that about 45% of SEOs would let Google either access all filters or no filters whatsoever. And actually, there's not many sites that had granular control over their filter system. So what do I mean about opening all and closing all? Well, here's a bit of an example here. So this is a representation of a product lister page with all the links down the left-hand side that presumably Google can see and access, and the resulting filtered set of results in line with all of those options on the left-hand filtering system. So essentially, Google's got access and free reign to crawl everything on that left-hand navigation, left-hand filter system. Now, the main negatives of this is that, and I know this firsthand through working with some very large companies, is that it can cause a lot of issues with the number of URLs that Google can discover. So sometimes hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of URL variations, all stemming from this filtering system, particularly if there's no control around it. And when you present so much content to Google, particularly if it's low quality, you're then reliant on Google to try and figure out which version of the page they should be serving against important queries for your website. And that causes issues. Google don't always get it right. They often get it wrong. And that can cause big problems. But also, Google potentially would be crawling millions of pages that are of low quality, that you really don't want Google to see because there's no value there. And you want them to be crawling the content and the pages that you're proud of and you've been working on to improve. And this open all approach can actually have overall negative impact to your organic campaign if it's left in that state. So what about the opposite example, blocking all filters? Okay, so this is similar setup, got the left-hand navigation, left-hand filters, but all of it is essentially, we're telling Google, just like Dunelm were, don't crawl any of this. We don't want you to have access to anything here. The main negatives here, as I've mentioned, well, your inability to compete for medium to long tail terms, particularly if your competitors have filter pages that are optimized. So you will be outranked, and you will ultimately be losing out on market share because you cannot compete. And then there's a bit of an in-between. There's a kind of some filters are indexable on particular sites, and then others are excluded. But some of the most popular exclusion methods, and I've listed a few here, some of them you may be familiar with, we probably don't have time to go through them all. But ultimately, they're not efficient. They're not efficient in the sense that we are essentially presenting Google a bunch of URLs that we're then telling them to ignore. And so it's reliant on Google again to make a decision around the URL they want to rank. And I've mentioned that Google often get it wrong. We're wasting their time crawling these pages as well. And we're potentially bloating their index full of rubbish that really they shouldn't be seeing. So we set about trying to come up with a more efficient filter system. So this is what we did. For filters that we ultimately wanted Google to access, what we did was we server-side rendered crawlable Ahref links on the left-hand filtering system. What does this look like in practice? This is the Dunelm website. You can see there's a value of white on the left-hand menu. It's a crawlable link as far as Google is concerned. It's got a clear anchor text of white, and the URL generated short and succinct, and in this case uses parameters. So that's filters that we want Google to access. For filters that we don't want Google to access, we essentially use client-side JavaScript and JavaScript buttons in order to simulate exactly the same kind of experience for customers in terms of interaction. Nothing really changes. But Google don't see anything. There's literally nothing there for them to see or crawl other than a bit of anchor text. So we're essentially avoiding presenting them with lots of unnecessary URLs. Again, what this looks like in practice, live on the Dunelm site. So if you're a customer and you're interacting with a filter that we have deemed not to be valuable, or we haven't necessarily opened it up to search engines yet, it performs exactly the same, it's not crawlable, and the URL that's generated will include a hash in the URL, and hashes are essentially ignored by Google. So we don't get any kind of weird, unnecessary URLs being discovered somehow. So it's also important that we had full control as an SEO team to manage filters. So we do have this built into our SEO toolset. We can go in and be very explicit about the particular values that we want Google to access. The requirement was also there so that we could fully customize these filter pages with all the, the basics of SEO, the headings, on-page copy, page titles, and descriptions, all managed in our back-end internal SEO tool. So, remember this? Remember this ticking time bomb that I mentioned earlier? Whilst we were working on a technical solution and looking into the other implications of opening up our filtering system, the effectiveness of Dunelm's old strategy of using PLPs and CLPs was starting to fail. That big upward trend that we were seeing started to drop. Yes, dropping demand was also involved in that as well, but we were really struggling to rank where we used to. But it wasn't a surprise, to be honest, because we could see it coming. So we had a technical solution, right? Couldn't we just go live with it? No. We had a few challenges to overcome. 3 challenges, to be exact. And the first one was some of our structural limitations. So Dunelm was growing. We're growing in the products we have. And the structure that we had just wasn't fit for purpose. And so the team needed to do full audit and review of the structure and make recommendations. And this was really within like scalability in mind. We're also acutely aware that we didn't want to launch loads of new filters only to have to go and change all the URLs again because we've changed the structure. So it was really about future-proofing what we were doing by working on structural changes. And that's a significant project for our team as well to work on because it's quite a large site. Another challenge we came up against, and that was our internal product attribute data didn't align with the way customers searched. So we did a massive keyword research and mapping exercise where we tried to understand how customers search, aligned that with kind of attributes and values, fed that back into the teams who were merchandising the site to ensure that they were using all the right terminology and not kind of internal language, internal styles that no one ever searches for. And third was missing product data. So it's pretty self-explanatory. We had missing data that we needed to fill. And so we worked closely with suppliers, and this is an ongoing thing, to plug the gaps, but also to get the supplier's viewpoint on and their expertise on things like how we classify certain products. And so we provided suppliers with search volume, data, attributes, and values that they could align the products that they were supplying us with the way in which we know customers search. So this was encompassed in this reattribution project that's been probably going for about 8 or 9 months and will continue to go for, who knows, maybe another 6 months. Lots of work. And so this is a very large project, took lots of coordination. It spans not only the SEO team, but trading teams, digital launch, commercial teams, and all of our suppliers, and there are hundreds and hundreds of them. This is definitely an ongoing project and work in progress. So in order to make progress, there was a lot of internal PR, a lot of internal education around this. So just a quick snapshot of the kind of activity that we undertook internally. Lots of kick-off meetings, training sessions for various teams, and regular reporting about progress. So how about results? Right, we launched the new filter system on the 1st of February this year. I think this is slightly out of date now, so we'll probably hit about 1,000 new pages through our filter system. And we reckon we're about 30% of the way through the project. And it's doing really well so far. Lots to come, though. So a couple of examples of before and after. So white wardrobes. Before we had filters, we were ranking in position 14 with our generic wardrobes page. And after launching the new filters, we moved up to position 2 with a much more relevant lister for customers searching for white wardrobes, because we're serving a white wardrobes page and not a generic wardrobes page that then the customers have to go and hunt for white wardrobes. Makes a much better experience for customers. And then the black coffee table. This is another example where we're ranking position 8 without a filter, and then in position 2 with a filter dedicated to black coffee tables. Overall, we've stopped that traffic decline. We do believe that the customers are getting a much better experience, and we're generating more and more long-tail traffic, which is a lot more granular and specific and much more closer to purchase than before, which is great. And we're ranking for more keywords than we ever have done, and that will continue as we launch new filters. So the overall position of Dunelm in the marketplace online is that we're 3rd at the moment. This is a report by Pi Data Metrics. They do a lot of kind of share of voice reporting. We work with them and have done for a number of years. And we're 3rd in the market behind a couple big players, Amazon and Argos, and being followed by IKEA and B&Q. But ultimately, we've got so much room for growth, which is so exciting for us. So in this case, filters were a great remedy to our declining organic traffic. Talking of remedies, do you remember the beginning? Any guesses as to what I was talking about? Anyone want to be brave? No? Okay. Cold water therapy. This is me in an oak barrel, whiskey barrel in my garden, not whiskey in it, it's just water. And I found this cold water therapy, cold showers, ice baths, incredibly beneficial to my health and well-being. Anyone has any questions about filters or cold water therapy, see me after the session. I'll be happy to help. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.